Welcome to the Chosen to Speak podcast, where your voice, your truth is valued. I'm the CEO Trend, and I'm your host. And on today's episode, I'll be giving you all a life update and my experience of following God's plan. Now, if you haven't watched episodes 1 and 2 already, I advise that you go do so that you can keep up with the storyline, because this episode is going to be an update to those things that I have previously talked about. And I'm going to tell you about how life is now in relation to my whole entire journey, because it all is a storyline. It all is a timeline. It all correlates with one another. So if you recall, if you have seen the previous episodes, in episode 1, I rewinded back to my childhood and upbringing. In episode 2 was moving out at 18, my journey of living alone, the story of being put out and being on my own, gaining my independence, finding God along the way, and more. It's been a journey, you all, and I want to break down how I got to where I am now. So in episode 2, I broke down the experience and the journey of moving out at 18 up until me now being a 21-year-old living in Houston, Texas. God called me out of my hometown, and I already knew when I signed that lease for that luxury apartment that He blessed me with in Chicago. I knew that was my last year there. I knew that I had outgrown that environment. I knew that God was shifting me and moving me and taking me to an unfamiliar place, but for a greater purpose. And the whole journey of being put out and living alone, and it's so much deeper than just being on my own and paying bills and surviving. This has been a journey. It has been an experience. It has been a story that is being written along the way. And that's what I want to talk to you all about today. I want to update you. I want to break down what the real, raw, uncut experience has been like. So just to give you all a recap, my mom put me out when I was 18 years old. I moved out. I've had a total of 3 residences of my own, including the one that I live in now. I'm from Chicago, so all of my places have been in Chicago up until I signed my lease for this luxury apartment God blessed me with in September of 2023. When I signed that lease, God told me, this is your last year in Chicago. And I knew God was going to move me, but I just was like, okay, God, we'll cross that path when we get there. He was not playing. He definitely had plans on moving me, and He meant what He said. This is your last year in Chicago. And it was. When God told me that was my last year in my hometown, when God said that He was moving me, when God said that He was moving me out of not just my hometown, but out of that apartment into a house, He was not playing. When God said that He's moving me across states, He was not playing. He did just what He said that He was going to do, and He did it quickly. My lease was up in that luxury apartment in Chicago, Illinois, September 1st, 2024. God moved me out of that apartment August 27th into my brand new luxury house in Houston, Texas, August 28th. Not to mention, God told me to resign from my part-time job in May of 2024. And as soon as I resigned from the job, it seemed like everything took a standstill. Everything became stagnant. It seemed like I was going through a drought. All 4 of my businesses were no longer making money anymore. It was just month after month after month after month, no income. I was sitting on a fat checking account, sitting on a fat savings account. However, I had no money coming in, and God was telling me that He was going to move me out of that apartment into a house in another state, to an unfamiliar place that I had never been in. It was just hard to believe that any of this was possible. I literally became discouraged because of my circumstances. It just seemed unreal to me. I kept trying to figure out how is this possible, but that wasn't for me to figure out. Literally, my lease was ending September 1st, 2024. And I remember it was August 19th before I started packing up my apartment, because I realized, okay, Regardless if I stay here in Chicago or if I go to Houston where God is calling me, I've got to go. I have to get out of this apartment regardless because the lease is ending. I can't just stay here. So, and I said, well, let me show God that I trust him, that I believe him, that I trust that he's going to do what he said he's going to do. And I said, well, let me just go to the store. And I got the boxes. And it seemed like as soon as I went to Home Depot and got those boxes and the tape and the totes and all the packing materials, that's when he began to show me, all right, the plan still stands. So I found my dream home. It was just listed, no pending sales, no applications. It was just open. And I felt like it was for me. I could envision myself in it. But at the same time, I was a bit hesitant because it's like, okay, I don't have any income. I don't have any pay stubs to prove that I can afford this home. I just felt like, how is this possible? Like, all I have is faith in God, a very high credit score, and money in the bank. That's it. And I remember praying over the address of the home, praying over the pictures and the videos of the home. And I said, God, this is the home that I desire. If it's within your will, allow your will to be done. But if this is not the home that you have for me, don't allow it to be. Show me the home that you have for me and teach me how to be accepting of whatever decision it is that you make. And I got approved for that home a couple days after applying for it. So remember, my lease was ending September 1st, 2024. It was August 27th when God moved me out of that apartment. And it was August 28th when God moved me into my dream home in Houston, Texas. Nobody but God. Nobody but the power of God. Nobody. It wasn't by my might. It wasn't by my ability. It wasn't by anybody else. It was nobody but God who can make such a thing possible. I was supposed to be making 3 times the monthly rent. This rent is $2,600. I had no way to prove that I had 2,600 times 3. But what I had was grace. What I had was favor. What I had was mercy. What I had was faith that God could do such a thing for me, and God did it for me. And I say all this to say that this entire journey has been nothing but a journey of surrendering, of letting go and letting God be God, of releasing control, of being obedient, of walking by faith and not by sight, so that I can be in alignment with the will, plan, and purpose that God has for me. Y'all, I hope y'all stand with me now. It was May 2024 when God told me to resign from my job. It was August 2024 when God moved me from Chicago to Houston. It is now March 2025, 10 months later from the time God told me to leave my job. 10 months later, and I still have no income. No income. I've ran out of my savings because all these months I've been living off my checking. I've been living off my savings. It's to the point where I have had to take money from my business account to pay for bills and expenses. But yet, I sit here right now with little to nothing. I sit here right now with little to nothing. But I could also sit here right now and tell you that no bill has been left unpaid and that I have not gone without. I have everything that I need, and I have the peace that surpasses all understanding. I can't tell y'all how this is even possible, but God is doing the impossible in my life. He's making the impossible possible. And he blows my mind every day because it's just like, I know it's not within my power. I know it's not somebody else. It's literally just me and God. And all right, bear with me, y'all. Bear with me. I feel as though ever since I got on my knees in that apartment in Chicago and I told God, I want to surrender my entire life to you. I give it all to you. I don't want the control. I don't want anything that you don't want for me. I want everything that you have for me. I surrender it all. My finances, my businesses, my relationships, my friendships, all of the above, God, I give it to you. I give it to you. Ever since that day, life changed. God came in and he did a clean sweep. He started moving things around. He started shifting and changing things and even changing me and breaking me apart and just renewing and restoring and evolving me and strengthening me and developing me and maturing me in a way that I didn't even think was possible. The woman that is before you all today, I'm still getting to know because this is not who I've been. This is a whole different version of me, but it's a version of me that was needed in order to accomplish certain assignments that God was bestowing upon me and that he is bestowing upon me. Y'all, 10 months later, I sit here with no income, but I am not without a thing. I don't need for anything. I don't want for anything, but I have just what I need. And it's all because of God. I give him all the glory, all the honor, and all the praise. I believe that God is trying to show me that if I can't trust anybody else, I can trust him. I've had trust issues my whole life, but I'm learning how to trust again because God has shown me who he is and the power that he holds and all that he is capable of and how much I'm capable of just by being in relationship with him. He blows my mind every day, you all. And it's like, despite what other people say, what God says still stands. People have told me to go get a job. People have told me to start a new business, to do this, to do that. But what God told me to do is what I've been doing. It has been working. Despite what it looks like, it's all working together and coming together for my good. Obviously, this journey has not been easy. It's been very trying, very testing. It's been just very hard for me. And despite financial struggle, the biggest struggle for me is not even that, because God has taken care of me. He's taking good care of me. When I say I don't need or want for anything, I mean that. But the biggest struggle overall has been the mental struggle that comes with enduring a season like this. The enemy has tried to make me forget my why. He's tried to make me forget who I am. He's tried to make me forget my purpose. He's tried to make me forget and lose sight of the promise. The enemy has been trying to make me self-sabotage myself because the enemy knows the plans that God has for me. I know that the plans God has for me are to prosper me, not to harm me, to give me hope in the future, but I don't know what those exact plans are. Only God and the enemy know that. And I feel like that's why this season is so important. And every day I try to be open-minded and have an open heart. And I try to be very vigilant because this is beyond me. God is doing something through me. And he's using me for his glory. And honestly, you all, the enemy has fought me so hard in this season to the point where I got so discouraged and I got so depressed that all I could do for months was lay in my bed. I didn't want to shower. I didn't want to eat. I didn't want to be around nobody. I didn't want to talk to anybody. All I could do was just lay there and just call on God. My anxiety was at an all-time high, to the point where I had become sick. I had to go back to therapy, and that wasn't working for me. All I could do was just lay in my bed. I didn't want to do much. I didn't have the strength to do much. I wasn't trying to be lazy. I wasn't trying to procrastinate. I just didn't have it in me. All I had the strength to do was open up my eyes and wake up and take a breath. That's all I had in me for months. And I knew that eventually I would break out of that. I just had to remember my why. I had to go back to the drawing board. I had to remember why it is that God was even doing all that he has been doing. Because it's not for punishment. And that's how the enemy was trying to make it seem to me. He was trying to tell me that I'm on punishment. It was that I was going through all this for something that I had did wrong or something that I was not doing. But in reality, I'm going through all this for the greater of my good. Everything I'm going through has purpose, and it's serving its purpose in its divine time. God has great plans for me, and it won't always be peaches and cream. I had to realize that God was answering my prayers. I had been praying to him, asking him to allow me to become a full-time entrepreneur and content creator. That's why he told me to leave the job. I had to realize that I surrendered to God. I told him that I didn't want anything that he didn't want from me. I told God that you can have your way in my life. I told God, I don't want control. You take control. You lead me and guide me. And this was the results of that. Yes, it may not have been my ideal response to the prayer, but God did what I asked him to do, but in his way. And it all makes sense. It all makes sense. And it is all coming together. I had to go back to the drawing board and remember one of the reasons God sent me to Houston, Texas was for real estate. I had already enrolled in real estate school in June, a month after he told me to resign from my job. But I had let the enemy distract me and discourage me and deceive me and mislead me and confuse me and instill all these lies in me that made me believe that none of this could even be possible. So I had stopped doing school for months. I stopped doing school. I stopped doing everything that God was instructing me to do because I couldn't conceptualize how is this going to even work. And that wasn't for me to figure out. My only job was to be obedient because that's what surrendering requires from us. Obedience. Obedience is better than sacrifice. Yes, I told God, you can have the control. Yes, God, you can do this. Yes, God, have your way. But I still was trying to have control. I still was trying to lean on my own understanding. When God says in his word, lean not unto your own understanding, but in all your ways submit to me and I will make your path straight. So I submitted, but I didn't fully submit because I wasn't willing to commit to the obedience that was required from me. The purpose of surrendering is to give God control. And surrendering is important because it allows God to be God. It allows God to do his job. It allows God to execute his will, plan, and purpose for your life. It allows God to do what it is that he has destined for you and for your life before you were even formed in your mother's womb. It allows God to do what it is that he truly has planned to do and wants to do for you. Surrendering means, God, I'm going to get out of your way. I'm going to get out of this driver's seat. I'm going to get in this passenger seat, buckle up, and trust that we're going to make it to our destination safely. That's what surrendering is. But surrendering and obedience go hand in hand because surrendering is an active agreement and a promise to do what God told you to do instead of doing what it is that you want to do. It's putting God's will over your own desires. It's trusting that God's plan is better than any plan that you could ever come up with. It's trusting that God's got you. But the biggest part of surrendering is letting go and letting God and trusting God and being still and leaning not onto your own understanding and having peace with not being in control. You have to learn to be content once you surrender. And that was the biggest struggle for me. I didn't know how to be content. I was allowing my circumstances and the things that were going on around me and the things that are going on in my life and the things that I could see to confuse me and mislead me and deceive me. That's why God tells us to walk by faith and not by sight, because the eyes are very misleading. I was allowing my circumstances and the things that I was going through and everything that was going on around me and the things that I could see determine what my future was going to be. I was allowing my circumstances to serve as some sort of permanence in my life, when God kept trying to tell me where you are now is just for now. All of this is just temporary. You're not stuck here. This is just part of the process. I have to break you before I can give you the breakthrough. There's no breakthrough without the breaking. And I realized that, like a rocket ship, it doesn't start at the top. It starts at the bottom and it ascends. I was allowing my present circumstances to restrict me and place limitations on my life. But see, all of this was because I had a fear of the unknown. I was wrestling with doubt. I was in a waiting season, struggling to trust in God's timing. And I was also going through a lot of spiritual warfare. All of those things were struggles for me. It was hard for me to see the future when I couldn't see past the right now. It was hard for me to envision the next when I felt so stuck in the now. And I couldn't figure out how I would get to the next when I just felt so trapped in the present. To whom much is given, much is required. And I realized that I expected so much from God, but I had to do my part. I had to be obedient. This journey of abiding by God's will, plan, and purpose and walking by faith and not by sight, it requires sacrifice. It requires change. It requires obedience. It requires faithfulness. It requires patience. It requires a different you. And I began to focus on becoming rather than gaining, because I knew if I became who it is that God created me to be, I would attract and align with what was meant for me. Surrendering requires obedience. It requires change. It requires sacrifice. And I've had to be willing to become a new me. I've had to be willing to release those old ways of being, thinking, doing, speaking, treating others, reacting to situations, handling things, going about life. I've had to alter my whole way of being and living and existing. I've had to become intentional. I've had to learn how to intentionally walk a path of righteousness. I've had to learn how to walk in my purpose and be intentional with all that I do. I've had to learn that life is not a game. And if I'm wanting what God has for me, I have to be willing to become who God needs me to be, to even step into the new position, to even step into this new dimension, to even elevate to these new heights, to even walk into these new doors of opportunity, to even be in the room networking with these high people. I have to be willing to change. The old me can't go where God is taking me, which requires me to die to my flesh and become renewed and transformed in spirit. So I'm single. I'm abstinent until marriage. So that means no fornicating. That means no sneaky links, no situationships. I don't even waste my time dating, because I know that God is going to send me my divine spouse at the appointed time. So it's no point in me trying to get in the field when these people don't even fit the criteria. So I'm literally taking this time to just focus on me, pour into me, become a better version of me, so that I can attract everything in life that is meant for me. I don't listen to secular music. I don't indulge in secular entertainment. I don't have many friends. I'm not really close with my family. I've silenced every voice that is not God's. I don't do a lot of what I used to do. And that's the moral of the story. Everything that I once knew, I'm unlearning. I've had to let go of the past and not look back on it. Old people, old places, old things, old habits, old way, all of that has had to go. I had to sacrifice it because part of surrendering is asking God for a new life, because what God has for you is the complete opposite of anything that you could ever ask, think, imagine, or pray for. It's bigger and better than what you're expecting. It's bigger and better than what you want, because the things that we want are so minuscule in comparison to the things that God has planned for us. So you have to be willing to become someone that you're not used to, but who you'll get used to, so that you can align with your destiny. Yeah, for months I was discouraged. For months I was in a deep depression. For months I was trying to do things my way. It's like some months I was still, but some months I was trying to figure it out on my own. And then it just got to a point where I was like, you know what? Back to the drawing board. Maybe it's not working because I keep trying to fix it myself. Nothing's broken. This is a part of the process, but I have to stay the course. I have to be obedient. Do you see how important obedience is? I had forgot that part of the reason why God moved me to Houston, Texas was for real estate. Because guess what? I let the enemy trick me into not doing school and going out doing Uber Eats for 9 hours, coming home with $100 or less a day, when really I'm supposed to be on this computer doing school for 8-9 hours a day so that I can be licensed and in this $1 million game. I had gotten so discouraged that I had lost sight. I had lost focus. I had forgot the promise. I forgot everything it is that God had told me to do and why he was telling me to do it. All those months went by and I wasn't doing school when I could have been had that real estate license in my hand. And that's when it got to the point where I was like, you know what? That's it. Whatever happens, happens. But I need to do what it is that God told me to do so that I can see some different results. And I can't worry about the next. I have to worry about each day as it comes. There's a verse in the Bible that says, do not worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow worries about itself, because it has its own problems and it has its own troubles. I have to stay focused on the now, but don't get stuck in the now. But I have to be present, and I have to be patient, and I have to be willing, and I have to be obedient. So I resumed school last month, and I've been all gas, no breaks ever since. I've been doing school Sunday through Saturday, no days off, locked in, and I am just weeks away from being done and having all the certificates that I need to sit for the state of Texas exam to get my real estate license in hand. Just by me taking acts of obedience, I'm now starting to see clearer again. My vision is no longer blurry. I'm feeling that peace that surpasses all understanding. I'm feeling happy. I have the joy of the Lord upon me. I am back on track. This is the reward for obedience. God is showing me that what he meant is what he meant, and that is what's going to come to pass. I am going to be a full-time entrepreneur and content creator. I am now. The income hasn't come yet, but I'm doing what God told me to do, and I'm seeing fruits here and there bearing. God has been giving me blessing here, blessing there, subtle sign here, subtle sign there, to show me that his word still remains. His promise is still yes and amen. All I have to do is be obedient, because disobedience is what delays the blessings. Disobedience is what disrupts and destructs the plan. So all I have to do is be obedient. I don't have to come up with a plan. I don't have to have all the answers. I don't have to figure anything out on my own. All that God already has worked out. All he needs me to do is be the best version of me, be obedient, have faith, trust him, and release all my anxieties and my cares and my burdens onto him so that he can do what only he can do. I'm not God. If I was God, I wouldn't need God. Therefore, when I'm telling God that I want to surrender to him, then I need to do just that. I've been having much better days, productive days, peaceful days, positive days, consistent days. I've been having just so much peace and happiness, and I'm content despite what I do and I don't have, because I'm not worried about what's not here, because I know that what's for me will be for me, because what's meant for me will locate me. But I have to be in alignment, and that's what's been my focus: staying in alignment, staying consistent, staying faithful, staying diligent, staying hardworking, staying the course, being obedient. I had to get out of my own way. I had to get out of my head. I had to rebuke the enemy and his plans and his schemes and his attacks. I had to remember my why. I had to remember my purpose. I had to remember who the God is that I serve. I had to remember that I'm not the victim. I am the victor. I had to remember that I remain victorious, because if God before me, who can be against me? The battle was already won. I'm not defeated. I'm not discouraged. There's no reason for me to be unmotivated. And the only way I've been getting through this season is through prayer, through fasting, through being in isolation, and just staying grounded and rebuking the enemy and telling him to find somebody else to play with. I've been living in the moment, but not allowing the moment to discourage me or to deter me from my destined path. I've just been using this time to pour into me and to stay close with God, because I know that he's the only one that can see me through. He's the only one that can pull me through this. The same God right now is the same God back then. The same God right now is the same God that heard me when I was crying in that 1-bedroom apartment in Chicago, saying, God, how are you going to do it? When are you going to do it? God, move me from where I am now to where you are taking me. And he did it. Despite me having income or not, he still did it. That same God is the same God right now. And so that's what fuels my faith, remembering who God is and what he has already done for me. The same power that God has is the same power that is at work within me. There's no reason for me to be afraid, because if I'm being honest with you, there's never been one time that God has let me down. There's never been a time that God has not come through for me. There's never been a time where God has not made a way for me. So there's no reason for me to fret. There's no reason for me to worry. There's no reason for me to be anxious. But in those times, I should be praying. In those times, I should be seeking God. In those times, I should be fasting. In those times, I should be to myself and in the secret place communing with God. In those times, I have to learn to ground myself and remember my why. Because through remembering my why, I'm reminded of my purpose. And through being reminded of my purpose, I know what I need to do to be obedient. So with that being said, y'all, I might not have a lot of money in my bank account. My bank account is the lowest that I've ever seen it. I've never struggled to make a dollar. I've never struggled to get a job. I've never had any financial hardship. This is a first for me, but I still have everything I need. And that's what amazes me, is that like all my bills are paid. I'm still in my house. I'm still driving my car. I'm still living my life. I'm still looking good, feeling good. Like God is, he's literally parting the Red Sea for me. God is literally doing great things, and I can't be more grateful and thankful. And I believe that that's honestly why these days have been so good for me, because Not to say I don't care, but like I don't have a care in the world. Like I'm not worried. I know God got it. It's to the point where I'm starting to trust God more than I trust myself. And that's just what it is for me. And that's why I'm back in school, almost finished, almost licensed. That's why I'm creating content, uploading videos daily. That's how the Chosen to Speak podcast was birthed, through my obedience. My mind is clear. My mind is free. I'm able to see clearly, hear clearly, think properly, which allows everything else to flow from it in a productive, peaceful manner. And I'm already seeing fruits. I'm already seeing blessings here and there. I'm already seeing that I'm headed to the promised land flowing with milk and honey. I'm already seeing that my hard work is paying off. I'm already seeing that I'm reaping the fruits of my labor. My hard work is going to pay off. And honestly, y'all, the biggest lessons I've learned in this season is patience, humility, appreciation, and how to release control and let go and let God be God and to be still. Those are the biggest lessons I've learned. And I've also realized that I don't have control. Even if I try to gain control, even if I think I'm in control, I have no control because God's plan for my life was already written. He doesn't allow any of us to be born without a purpose. We all have purpose. It's our responsibility to live the lifespan we're giving in purpose. It's our responsibility to live life fulfilling the purpose that God gave us. And so now that I know my purpose, I know exactly what I need to do. And I know exactly where I'm headed, even though I don't know all the details. And I know that no matter what I try to do, what God has planned for me, that's what it is. What God says goes. His will, plan, and purpose is what reigns. It's what's going to manifest because he already had it set in stone before he placed me in my mother's womb. So I might as well not waste time being disobedient, delaying what's destined for me. Instead, I should just stay grounded, guard my heart, keep a peaceful, clear mind, and stay focused and stay in alignment and stay ready so I don't have to get ready. And so that everything can just flow to me naturally because I'm who it is that I need to be, doing the things that I was destined to do. God can't do his job and God cannot execute his will, plan, and purpose for our life when we're disobedient. So we have to be sure that we are obedient and we have to exercise our faith by letting go and letting God be in control and just being obedient to his instructions, even if they don't make sense. Overall, I learned that this is not my life. I'm just giving it and I'm living it. It's God's will. It's God's plan. I'm just giving life and breath to execute what it is that God has destined. But I have to be obedient because through my obedience comes other people's deliverance. Through my obedience, God can get his glory. Through my obedience, I can have victory. I just thank God for how far I've come, all that he has done for me, all that he is doing, all that he is about to do. I thank God for his grace, his favor, and his mercy. I thank God for his protection, his covering, and the million chances that he gives me. I just thank God for his patience. And I'm just so excited to see what God does next. I'm excited to see who I become. I'm already becoming such a beautiful, amazing person that I didn't even know that I was capable of being. But I'm excited to see life as a result of becoming who it is that I was always destined to be. Following God's plan is not an easy journey, but it's a rewarding one. Following God's plan is full of surprises. It's full of ups and downs, but the reward, the grass on the other side is bright green, and I'm just excited to see God's plan unfold in my life. I love to see it day by day, but I'm just excited to see like the bigger picture. I just thank God for keeping me and bringing me this far. I thank God for choosing me, using me, authorizing me, calling me, qualifying me for such a time as this. I just thank God that I'm here to see his plans unfold. And I just always pray that God keep me in alignment. And I just pray that I remain obedient and I remain faithful and consistent and diligent in my works. And I just pray that I just continue to walk by faith and not by sight, and never allow myself to get discouraged or grow weary in well doing ever again. And I just want to remain at peace and remain whole and remember my why and walk fully in my purpose and unleash my fullest potential so that I can see the bigger picture of God's will, plan, and purpose for my life. And this wraps up episode 3 of Life Update Following God's Plan. If you enjoyed this week's episode, be sure to like this video, share your thoughts in the comments below, and subscribe for more. Don't forget to come back next Friday at 7 p.m. Central for another episode where I'll be diving deep into some topics that you don't want to miss. Chosen to Speak Podcast is available to watch here on YouTube and available to listen on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. And of course, we're on TikTok at Chosen to Speak Podcast. Thank you for tuning into the Chosen to Speak Podcast, where your voice, your truth is valued. See you again next week.